614 Productions is proud to present the Not So Neutral Zone, a podcast for armchair enthusiasts by armchair enthusiasts. I'm your host, Jacob Smith, and with my co-host, the yin to my yang, David Trexler.
And we're back.
We're back. Been a while. Been gone for far too long.
We did have another episode up, but we got in trouble with the YouTube police, and
the 5-0 got us.
So the episode was pulled, hopefully at a later date, and due to also some computer issues with the computer, I don't know what's going on with it, it's being stupid. But we're going to bring that episode back later and call it the Lost episode. It was pretty fun because I quizzed you on baseball, and if you knew what number went with what position and who's on first.
Yeah, we've got to get that one back. We had a lot of... We had some quality rabbit holes we went down with that one.
Yeah, I went down a lot of rabbit holes there. That was more than I've done before.
That's more than usual, and that's saying a lot. But we're here now. And you know what the biggest news is? Come on. I didn't watch it. You didn't watch it. But football is back, baby.
Olympics.
No, those don't come back for a little while. 2020? Is it 2020? We had Olympics this year. We had winter this year. Summer in 2020.
Really? I missed... Where was I? Did I miss the Olympics or something?
I think it was early in the year. It was this year, right?
That was South Korea, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Pyongyang?
Yeah, that's right, because...
Something like that.
Because I forgot, because I asked you who are OAR. I forgot that the Russian athletes aren't allowed to compete under the actual Russian... So they were the Olympic athletes from Russia.
Yep. I don't know where 2020 is. That'll be something we'll have to pull up and mention later. But football's back. I'm probably going to say it like 6 times this episode. Now, the Hall of Fame game was Thursday. I still don't know what the score was and who won, but because I didn't watch it. But it's enough to get me excited that it's almost time. It is almost time. So, I finally got to pull up here, but the 2020 Olympic Games will be in Tokyo. Just a sidetrack. And you have the score to the game?
17-16, Ravens over the Bears.
Ravens over the Bears. Now, the biggest thing from Hall of Fame week is obviously not the game, because it's just the first preseason game. Your starters play maybe a drive. But there was a lot of drama surrounding the Hall of Fame ceremony itself, with someone deciding not to show for the first time in as far back as I can remember.
He's the only living person in the history of the Hall of Fame ceremony to not go. And it would not be vintage Terrell Owens to go to the Hall of Fame ceremony. That is just Terrell's thing to actually not go to it. It's just that if he did show up, it wouldn't be him. I saw a video that showed they did do like a little thing off from there. He did get his jacket and everything. But I'm not surprised that happened. It was a typical T.O. thing for it to happen. And
well, he's always been one to stir up drama wherever he could. He's probably the best diva wide receiver that we've had in a while. For a while there, you had a couple of these divas running around, and now everybody kind of keeps their mouth shut.
To me, it's not about him being a diva, and I guess this goes back to being a marketing major. But to me, that's how you market yourself. You want everybody to appear to everybody as a not a diva, but that's how you get your brand out there. But the media's let it become too much of a story. Terrell just said, hey, I'm not going. And everybody else decided, oh, well, why is he doing it? He's doing it just so he can be the first, or he's being different.
Now, enough about T.O. We figured with his complaints that he wasn't a first ballot that something like this might happen. But I want to give congratulations both to Terrell Owens and the other inductees. You have contributor Bobby Bethard, linebacker Robert Brazil, safety Brian Dawkins, guard Jerry Kramer, linebacker Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, and Brian Urlacher. So you have quite a good mix there of characters. You got Brian Urlacher, who's the best Bears linebacker since the
Monsters of the Midway.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly which nickname.
Another little tidbit.
Mm-hmm.
With Urlachers and Strymon, it bumps them up again. The Bears have the most Hall of Fame inductees with 34 or 28, depending on whether you count players that only played a small portion of their career with that team. But they have the most. And a majority of those guys, I believe, are from that Bears championship team that won the Super Bowl.
Yep. And the only thing I regret, the only thing that I feel is missing from Urlacher's career is a championship. But they got close. He was a big part of that, was it 05 team? Was it 05 that they lost to the Colts?
No. I believe it was
06?
It was 06 or 07.
Okay. I can't keep them straight. Then you've got Ray Lewis. Did you hear what Ray Lewis said? The man's crazy. He was talking about how he would run 20 miles a day listening to Phil Collins in the Air Tonight on repeat until he broke the tape.
We may have to look this up for a future episode to talk about, but I wonder how many times in the history of the Hall of Fame game being actually held, how many times did both teams who are playing in the Hall of Fame game have a player getting inducted the same weekend? Because Ray Lewis and Urlacher both come from both these teams.
I think that's one of the big reasons they picked both of them. And then, of course, you have an AFC and NFC representative as well. So I think that was a big reason they picked the two teams. But that is interesting because they've done I know not every year is picked based on that because you had like Carolina Jacksonville when they came in the league with Hall of Fame. Then for the AFL's 50th year, they had two AFC teams play each other. So, might be interesting.
On the 30th anniversary of the founding of the Panthers and the Jaguars, they should play in the Hall of Fame game again. Because that was an awesome year for two brand new teams. First time their units collectively got to play on the field at the same time. And it was just, you got to see this. It was the first time that I ever got to see a franchise team. I don't know. I'm going to guess maybe Houston's going to be your franchise team that you've gotten to see for the first time.
But yeah, I think it would have been great. I was real little then, but I think it would have been great to actually watch that game because it basically would have been like a pickup football game. These are guys that a lot of them had never played together before, on two different teams, and so they're trying to find themselves.
Oddly enough, the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts was the starting quarterback for the Panthers in that game. A little trivia nugget we're going to throw out there for the people.
Sorry.
There were quite a few legendary players in there, including somebody from our own backyard. Tommy Barnhart, punter for the Panthers at the time. I can't remember who else was on. Tony Vaselli was a rookie for the Jaguars, I believe, that year. Trying to think of somebody. Tyrone Poole was a rookie for the Panthers. He went on to play for the Patriots. But that I know of, I may be wrong on this, but I believe neither one. The Panthers, Jaguars, Texans are now the only three teams, I think, in the NFL that don't have a player who was inducted primarily that played most of their career there. Reggie White's a Hall of Famer, but the bulk of his career was from the USFL and from his time with the Packers. Who would you pick as your first Hall of Fame inductee for the Panthers?
Well, I think it's going to be obvious, and it's probably going to happen with Julius Peppers. I mean, I think that's going to be. I think he gets in. Maybe not first ballot, but he gets in. I understand he played a good part of his career outside of Carolina, but he came back and had a lot of those huge sack seasons in Carolina. And funnily enough, our GM now wanted to make him the highest paid defensive player ever, and he left.
That is also what I consider one of Marty Herney's biggest screw-ups in his entire career was giving the franchise tag to Peppers and giving Jordan Gross that big contract that year instead of giving that contract to Peppers and locking him down and letting him get away. And this bringing him back was kind of his, I screwed up kind of thing.
Well, but it's not like he hadn't been helpful, but yeah.
A big story involving your Panthers.
Yeah.
Since the last time we recorded is the sale of the Panthers has been completed and there's a new owner in town. And one of the big stories I heard on local news was this is the last year that they will be traveling to Spartanburg for training camp because he is going to build a new state-of-the-art facility for the Panthers and a new headquarters for the Panthers, which says that this guy is going to be a little more invested than the previous group.
Yeah, and I think it ties him down more to Charlotte than anything else. If you come in and didn't try to make these changes, people are going to be like, is he trying to move the team? What's he trying to do? And if you come in and you invest money like what Shad Khan did in Jacksonville when he bought the team,
he's heavily invested in that city.
He poured money into that city. You know, everybody thought Jacksonville was gone. They thought they were London, L.A. for a while,
Vegas. They were one of the big guys.
They were one of those names that kept coming up, and Shad Khan really changed that. So, you know, I don't think the Panthers were in any massive danger of being moved, but I think it really calms nerves. Now,
have you heard what was the other reason behind that?
No.
Tepper, I think it's just one of those rumors that's out there, but one of the stories that keeps little breadcrumbs here and there of is that Tepper is trying to acquire a huge plot of land in the city of Charlotte for the purpose of bringing a Major League Soccer team to Charlotte. The other thing that I'm wondering is some of that longevity that the Pittsburgh Steelers are known for in their coaching, are they going to translate that over with the Panthers? Because right now, I think Carolina has the best head coach they've had. John Fox was good, and I wondered how they were going to be able to top him. Ron Rivera they would be crazy to get rid of Rivera because he's the first coach to have a winning record with the team as far as overall coaching record.
You know, Ron Rivera's not perfect. I love having him as a coach. If I had to list downfalls, it might be the conservative play calling, and then sometimes he has too much loyalty for people. I'm surprised that we changed offensive coordinators. But beyond that, you're right. And the Panthers have had that coaching stability. I think that just may add to it, bringing Tepper in. You know, Pittsburgh's had, 3 head coaches for the history of forever.
Since I've been alive, there's only been 3 head coaches of that team. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin.
So, you know, the Panthers they've not been quick to drop guys. So I think that loyalty is a good thing.
Here's a big tidbit. The Panthers and the Jaguars each individually and the Browns, all 3 have had more head coaches. I'm going to retract that and add another team to that. The Houston Texans have had more head coaches than the Pittsburgh Steelers since the Texans have been in existence. Because I don't know how the Rooney family and all those guys up there in Pittsburgh operate that team, but if I was going to found a football team and I was going to have a team in the NFL, I'm going to them and asking them, what's your business model? How do you do this, factor in with the coach? Because that's what I want to instill that in my team. I want my coach to know, oh, you had 3 good years, then we had 5 bad years. I'm going to fire you because I know that we're on a turnaround. And it's hard to have a rebuild when you're constantly changing. And the one of the best things I think Carolina did is Mike Shula should stay quarterback coach, not an OC. He was a good quarterback coach. But now Carolina has who I think may be one of the best offensive-minded coaches at offensive coordinator now in Norv Turner. This goes back to Turner and Rivera's time in San Diego together. In San Diego together with the Chargers, where I don't know what those people think. They're crazy the way they fired their head coach because their OC and DC left. But one team that I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with them, and I'm not going to go ahead and write them off as being the bottom of the barrel. I think they may still be at the bottom of their division this year. But I think the Cleveland Browns, with all the offensive weapons they have this year, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to put some points on the board. And I'm talking not trying to rival New England, but maybe putting it to some of the teams in their division, like Marvin Lewis and the Bengals, who I think may be their last year together as head coach. I see him being in their front office next year, but he's not going to be on the staff as a head coach. He may be an advisor or something.
Well, that is the flip side of this argument we've been just talking about with longevity in coaching. What happens if you have a coach that doesn't win a game all year, does it really matter how long he's been on there? Can you hold on to somebody like that? And I could understand that. I could understand that if you were just absolutely wrecked with injuries. I could understand that. But then you have a head coach that's also thrown certain players under the bus, kept trotting out a rookie quarterback and then blaming him when he wouldn't perform. The kid was not Andrew Luck, And speaking of Kaiser, he's in a good spot now with Green Bay. I feel he's in a much better position. But I just think they made the wrong decision holding on to him. Yes, Cleveland had a bad reputation for firing coaches far too soon. But this guy didn't win you he's won one game in 2 seasons. I don't know how you can justify that. And then, funny enough, you mentioned Cincinnati. That's another flip side of the very same argument. What happens if you keep a coach on for as long as Lewis has been there? The only coach in the league who's been a head coach for one team longer than him is Bill Belichick, who has Super Bowl rings to speak for. How do you keep a coach that can't win a playoff game? I know that's a constant thing that is brought up with Cincinnati.
I think that's loyalty.
They have had that consistent success in the regular season, but then the playoffs come, and I can understand bad luck a little bit. I don't expect everybody to be Tom Brady in the playoffs. Getting to the playoffs is an achievement in itself, but to not win a single game, I don't understand where that comes from.
Just curious.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you think we'll go into the season before the first head coach is fired? Do you think somebody's going to get cut before the end of the year?
Oh, somebody always usually gets fired before the end of the year. So I'm going to say we'll get to at least week 8. Unless Cleveland opens the year like 0-4 and they look really terrible at 0. Then maybe Hughes out the door.
My dark choice of coaches to get fired, I'm going to say Todd Bowles with the Jets.
Jets. Not saying anything bad about the Jets, but it's easy to forget about them. They've been just kind of mediocre lately. But yes, that could be a very, if they look very terrible to open the season. And I think the Jets normally start off slow, so he better light some fires under some people.
Do you see a first-year coach getting fired?
A first-year coach? As long as they don't go winless, I don't think a first-year coach gets fired.
My first-year coach pick to get fired in his first year, if any of them do, is Wilkes in Arizona.
That is a team that looks a little shaky right now. That team could easily fall apart.
Don't forget they got the most injury-prone quarterback in the NFL now. Cinderella knee. Is that what we're going to call him now?
Cinderella.
He got that Cinderella knee, and he's out. But not to get sidetracked, and
After
because
midnight turns into a pumpkin.
Because it has, to me, I've thought of another coach I think is going to get his walking papers at the end of this year.
Okay.
The AFC East is going to have a 50% turnover at head coach. Miami and the Jets will fire their coaches at the end of this year. I think I'm going to pick those two, Cleveland, Cincinnati, from the South. Who do I think will get fired from the South possibly? Possibly, if there's any coaches getting fired from the AFC South, it's Houston. From the West, I'm going with Andy Reid, and possibly, I think he may be safe. But, you can blame last year with the Chargers on the move, but I could possibly see that one as also.
The thing that I think is going to save Andy Reid is going into the season with a new quarterback. Unless he said something to the front office about how he's sure this guy is going to be great for him. I think even if they have a poor year, I think he's still safe because of having a new quarterback.
My NFC choices for getting fired, let's see. From the East, the one coach I think is getting fired from that division for sure would be Gruden. From the North, the Bears have a new coach. They're safe. Zimmer, I don't see any problem because he landed him a good quarterback. He's got a good quarterback, so I think he's fine. Detroit's got a new coach. So from the NFC North, the one coach I think needs to be gone at the end of this year is McCarthy. That team needs that's the same argument we had about Cincinnati. Need a new change there.
I would like to make a quick rundown on that. Yes, they have a Super Bowl ring. You have potentially one of the greatest quarterbacks playing the game right now on your team.
Not to mention he was a good he studied under one of the best.
Mm-hmm. You made the playoffs all these times, and the wagon always falls off. You either have some conservative play call that ruins you, like when they played Seattle in the what was that? Was that the NFC Championship game where they blew that huge lead? They just had. I don't know what it is. I think McCarthy is the problem there. I think he's holding that team back.
They've got, and Rodgers is an awesome quarterback. He's one of the top 5, and you're holding him back. They blamed Dom Capers for their defensive problems. That wasn't their problems. They need to get their defensive captain's head the right way and stop worrying about all these commercials he's doing and get out there on the field. And I still have a problem with Matthews going back to that one Green Bay game in Green Bay when he flipped off the Green Bay fans. That right there, I'm sorry, you would have right there been suspended at least one game.
Yeah.
Sit on the sideline or sit out there and watch the game and appreciate it. This is your defense. But on that same token, in the NFC South, I have 2 teams, again, just like the AFC East, 50% turnover. Dan Quinn, Ron Rivera are safe. It's time. I think Dirk Cutter's gone at the end of this year. That was a mistake right there, firing Lovie Smith just to keep Cutter as head coach.
Yeah.
The other one I think needs to go is Sean Payton. It's time. Like with McCarthy, you're holding back a good quarterback and a good team. Your team, yeah, you had that one good luck season last year just because the Falcons and Panthers slipped off a little. They're still holding on to that Super Bowl ring. Peyton, to me, I still have a problem with him saying that the Falcons were going to choke in that game they were playing and the Falcons beat them. Then he gets all excited in that one game that they're going to win in the playoffs. They lose. Now, from the West, let's see, who we got in the West? We got the Rams, Seahawks. Okay, Seattle. That's my team in the West.
Think Carroll's done?
He has personally dismantled the Legion of Boom. He had some great defensive players.
I think Carroll is just that type of coach that cannot build long-lasting success. You know, you've got these guys. You've got, you know, your Tomlins, your Belichicks that have been there with that one team for a long time and have, you know, understand that we're not just playing for this season or for next season. We're playing for 5-10 seasons down the road. We're planning. We're plotting. Pete Carroll is just one of those guys that he wants to win now, you know, put it together and make it happen. And then afterwards it kind of falls apart.
Okay. Now,
you know, he's a short-term guy.
I'm going to sit here and I'm going to run down.
And by short-term, I don't mean by NFL's short-term standards. He's already one of the longer tenure coaches.
If I miss a team, I want you to help me out here.
Okay.
Okay. Since I am the guy here and you're the co-host, I'm going to put you on the spot with a few things.
All right.
First off, I want to go with I'm going to ask you, since we got enough time, looks like about 30 minutes to our out time. I'm going to ask you to give me the best achievement and the biggest blunder in the Super Bowl era of every NFL team, and you choose which conference we start with. Which conference do you want to start with?
I guess the NFC.
Okay, we'll start with the NFC East.
Mm-hmm.
The best moment for the Dallas Cowboys and their biggest blunder.
Their best moment is like the early 90s, you know, winning Super Bowls. Their biggest blunder, a name's escaping me now. They fired a coach after winning the Super Bowl.
Switzer?
No. Who was it? Was it Johnson?
Johnson was the other one.
Johnson, yes. They fired him after winning the Super Bowl.
Well, you know they won one with Switzer and fired him also. Which my dad says, if you coach Dallas and win a Super Bowl, you're getting fired.
Yeah.
Next up, let's go with the New York Giants. What's theirs?
What's their crowning achievement? Ending the perfect season and winning the Super Bowl in the same game. That's pretty impressive. Tom Coughlin's like the only head coach, one of the only head coaches I've ever seen to not be intimidated by Bill Belichick. He's like, I know Belichick's good. He's going to come in here. He's going to play his best game. I've got to play my best game. Not worried about what he's doing over there. my team's going to play good. The only other person I could say that really understood that would be Peterson last year in the Super Bowl.
Biggest blunder for the Giants.
Biggest blunder would be, I know it's a little bit recency bias, which most of this is going to be, but is McAdoo. You know, you force Coughlin out, and this guy that his own team didn't respect him. When you lose that respect, it's just done. You should have just cut ties then and there.
Okay, now we're going to go to the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles.
Well, I think the crowning moment has been every day since whatever day in February they won the Super Bowl. You know, they are the defending world champions, and they will be that until next February.
Biggest blunder for the Eagles, what would you call?
Oh, God, because they've had some doozies. Chip Kelly.
Could I interject a suggestion?
Total Super Bowl era, they've had plenty.
I can
Batteries that thrown at Santa? What was that?
Can I interject here?
Sure, go ahead.
Suggest one. The Blue Canary uniforms.
Blue Canary.
That's got to be the biggest blunder for that team. Because even the fans, even the players, like, I don't want to wear these uniforms. I don't want to wear it. Yeah? Now, I was in these guys' backyard 2 weeks ago. The Washington Redskins. Biggest accomplishment for those guys. Or best moment. Should I say, instead of keep saying biggest accomplishment?
I mean, I think it's got to be one of their Super Bowl wins. We can just say that it's I don't know, winning the Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks. I mean, granted, this was an era before the having the guy was a requirement, but still winning a Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks is pretty impressive. And then obviously their biggest blunder is their own. You know, when he bought the team, it's just been like down, down, down. The whole RG3 thing was a disaster. Then, you know, ruin Kirk Cousins. I don't even know what they're going to do. Maybe Alex Smith will save them.
Let's head to the Midwest now for the next 4. The Chicago Bears.
Chicago Bears. Let's see. The crowning achievement.
One of your favorite moments from them. Best moment.
Best moment? Well, the best moment in my lifetime is returning the opening kickoff in the Super Bowl for
Devin
a touchdown.
Hester.
Devin Hester. I mean, this was a team that would come to your stadium, and you weren't scared of the offense or the quarterback. You were scared of the defense and the special teams. They literally punt the ball out of bounds on punts. You know, they'd squib kick it on kickoffs to make sure that this guy didn't torch them, and that led to short field opportunities for the offense, the offense wasn't exactly world dominating, but was passable at times.
Biggest blunder?
Biggest blunder. Trestman, maybe? Mark Trestman?
I think we can move on real quick.
Yeah.
Detroit. The Detroit Lions.
Oh, boy.
For me, I'd say one of the biggest moments for them was when they won that game after being being winless for so long, and every game that they lost during that span, the city was still coming out and supporting the team because of all the bad stuff that was happening there. These guys still had the support of the city.
Yeah.
Now, biggest blunder, I might have to steal this team from you. They have 2 big blunders.
Yeah.
Forcing 2 of the greatest players to ever put on a Lions uniform. I almost said Bears there. Lions uniform, Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, both who wanted to leave the team. They refused to trade them, released them from the contract, so both retired in their prime. So let's go on to the guys from the small, small town of Green Bay, Wisconsin, the Packers. What would you say for them?
Well, their crowning moments, obviously winning the Super Bowl with Rodgers, and if I don't remember it, but with Favre as well. They're a tough team to pick a blunder because even though I'm not a fan of their head coach, they have had consistent success.
They're really a hard team to have a blunder, but if you got to go with one, actually letting Favre get away from them was probably the big blunder. You know,
I don't think that was because you saw what come after it. If they continue to pursue Favre, they might lose Rodgers, and look what turned out. Obviously, at the time, a lot of people thought it was a bad idea, but they got some draft picks out of it.
Next up, Minnesota Vikings. Biggest accomplishment and biggest blunder.
I mean, they've put together some great teams.
I say last year was their accomplishment, almost making it to the Super Bowl in their city.
Yeah, but it could also be their blunder that they had to go to Philadelphia, and then they absolutely got whooped. You know, obviously we talk about Foles' performance in the Super Bowl now, but Foles didn't look real hot in their divisional game, and then comes out in the conference game and just starts whooping them.
I had one for both for this team, and I can't think of what the blunder. Biggest blunder for the team is obvious.
Oh, okay.
It is not modern.
Uh-huh.
But it was the player for their team who either recovered a fumble or an interception and ran it all the way downfield the wrong way.
Oh, God.
The wrong way touchdown.
Who was that?
That was probably the biggest blunder in that team. That's worse than losing to the Cleveland Browns. Okay, let's go to the South. I'm going to steal the Falcons from you on their biggest blunder.
Uh-huh.
Biggest blunder in Falcons history was trading Brett Favre to the Packers. Biggest accomplishment? I don't know, other than the fact that they dominated the year they went to the Super Bowl before they lost. And they were the first team to take the Patriots to overtime in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to turn it back over to you for the Panthers.
Now this is one I can speak to.
Because I got a blunder for the Panthers too.
You got a blunder for the Panthers? Well, the crowning moment, depending on how you look at it, I would say their biggest achievement is going 15-1 and making it to the Super Bowl. You know, you can't help it that you run into a once-in-a-generation talent defense when you get there. But, you know, if you didn't want to say, if you said that year ended on a sour note, how about when they went to the Super Bowl and played the Patriots? You know, you had Jake Delhomme in a shootout with, at the time, young Tom Brady, but still, he was already renowned as a good passer. And they go to a shootout after playing 3 quarters of defensive football. And then blunders.
Janet Jackson threw the Panthers off in that game. That's why they lost.
Distracted them. Blunders, they've got quite a few.
George Seifert, Chris Winkie, Dan Morgan. Those two right there are the biggest blunders they had.
You got... I like Winkie. I'm going to go a little bit more modern. It may not be the biggest, but this I wanted to bring it up anyway. Was after losing their first round, trading away their first round pick, they draft Jimmy Clausen
the pickle
in the
as he was
second
known
round to be the quarterback for him, and blew it. This was Marty Herney moves. I don't even remember why they traded the first round pick. I think they traded it to move up in the previous year's first round to get someone. I don't even remember. But they get Winkie. Well, they get Clausen, and then proceed to have an absolutely terrible UA, leading to Cam Newton.
The New Orleans Saints.
Their blunder has got to be Bountygate. It's got to be, because and then the people involved in that are still in the league. I mean, you have coaches sanctioning injuring other players for money. You know, I can understand it more for players because players are, I mean, I don't approve it, but I understand it more. But the coaches, you know, approving of that and paying bonuses to players, and they still get to play in the league. I understand, you know, they received punishments, but I don't think their punishments were severe enough.
No.
And the crowning achievements winning the Super Bowl. I mean, after, what was it, a few years after Katrina?
And
The
all
city
that
was
dealing with it.
devastated, and then all of a sudden it is brought back together.
Now for an interesting one.
Oh, God.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, their accomplishments, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that
I know we're beating a dead horse with all these teams' accomplishments being the Super Bowl, but with a lot of these
what better
teams...
accomplishment could you get?
Well, we're going to be getting to a team in a minute whose biggest accomplishment was winning the Super Bowl, but it's tied in with something else. Now, we know what the biggest blunder is in the Buccaneers' history. The creamsicle uniforms.
Yeah. And everybody wants them to wear them for throwbacks. I don't
Now,
understand it.
well, it's...
Well, it's nostalgic now, I guess.
Yeah, and it's I guess it's because they went so long without winning.
Maybe in 20 years, we'll want them to wear the alarm clock number jerseys as throwbacks.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd be like, look at this. Here, come here, kids. Look at how ridiculous they look.
Now,
I thought it would look a little less ridiculous after all these years, but it doesn't.
we may either have to extend time or hold off on some for next time, but
Well, let's finish the NFC, and then we'll look at the clock.
Arizona, the
Mhm.
Cardinals, their accomplishment and their blunder.
Well, I think their accomplishment has to be what it led to, but bringing Kurt Warner there. You know, They didn't win. Again, ran into a good defense and a 101-yard interception return. But convincing Kurt Warner to come there and play for them and success that they had. But prior to that, the Cardinals didn't really have a team put together for a while prior to that. And now they keep getting old quarterbacks to come play for them. It's going to be interesting to see if they ever have a bad enough season where they draft like that top 5, that sweet spot for finding quarterbacks.
Blunder.
They've just been like a lot of them. Help me out here. What you got?
I got nothing for the Cardinals other than the fact that it's been 70 years since they won a championship. But I think you may have some insight on the next few, without getting political, and putting breaking one of our rules for the podcast of not talking about off the field activities of players. We're gonna head to the Los Angeles / St. Louis Rams.
Okay. A lot of people are going to expect me to say their blunder is moving to back to LA. It's not. That team jumped in value like a lot. So I'm not even going to, that could be, if you want to talk from a purely financial statement, that is their biggest success ever.
A lot of people will say the biggest blunder for the Rams was hiring Jeff Fisher.
That is another head coach that if you give him a leash and give him time, he delivers the same thing. If you want consistency, go by all means hire Jeff Fisher.
He was at the time of his firing, he was the longest tenured coach in the NFL.
If you want consistency, but you're going to be consistently mediocre, you do not build a fan base by being consistently mediocre. You either need to be good, or at least good sometimes, or you need to be bad. If you're consistently middle of the road, nobody ever talks about you.
Okay, we're gonna head down the road a little bit from Los Angeles to Santa Clara. What about the 49ers?
The 49ers.
Their accomplishment, for me, was up until they lost to the Ravens, their accomplishment was being the only undefeated team, the only team to go to multiple Super Bowls and be undefeated.
Yeah. They had lots of success. They went from one Hall of Fame quarterback to another. A lot of people will say that, but you don't realize how difficult that is to actually pull off. I can think of one other team that's done that with Green Bay.
Now, their blunder has to be the Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula era, that 2 years with them.
I think the biggest blunder is their owner anyway. What's his name?
I think it's actually their GM.
He's like the owner's son, but he runs the day-to-day operations. For the life of me, I can't remember his name. We haven't talked about him in forever.
Jed York, I think.
York, yes, thank you. I think that's the biggest blunder. And I think he seemed to have calmed down. I think he came in and wanted to be the big man in the room, which, was Harbaugh's thing. Harbaugh was the big man in the room. He always was. You come up the way he did, he's the big man.
They tried. They were going to try to say, a lot of people would have tried to say, hiring John Lynch, a player with no GM experience, to be their GM. But look what he did. He got the Patriots to trade their heir apparent to Tom Brady to them, and he went on a streak.
The Patriots would not part with him for a first-round pick to Cleveland. Apparently that came out. So, obviously Bill Belichick thinks they're going to take good care of him. So they sent him out west for a second. Apparently, in the conversation John Lynch had with Belichick about potential trades, he was originally turned down, which, of course, is the first rule of haggling. He was turned down at first, and apparently he asked about trading for Brady. So, yeah, that would have been interesting. Tom Brady grew up a 49ers fan, in case you did not know. But, yeah, I think Jed York would be their biggest blunder. Time will tell if that's going to pay off now. All right.
So you think about 24, 25 minutes is enough for you to do the AFC?
I could probably do the AFC.
Okay.
I don't think we finished NFC.
We got Seattle. One more of Seattle. Biggest accomplishment, Super Bowl.
Gotta be. Going to back-to-back, even though you only won one, especially in the salary cap era, going to back-to-back Super Bowls, it's difficult. A few teams have done it. One was the Patriots. In the salary cap era, I think the Patriots may be the only one that's going to back-to-back.
Blunder.
Let's see. They've got that wide receiver they traded for.
Harvin.
Percy Harvin, who they traded, was like a first, a third, and a seventh or something to get him, and he played there for like 3 seasons.
To me, the biggest accomplishment for the Seahawks was moving to the NFC. In the AFC, they were a laughingstock. They moved to the NFC, and they have been a team that's been playoff contenders for years.
Yep.
But we're gonna swing around, and we're gonna start from the West in the AFC instead of the East, because the East is we'll be able to breeze through the East quick. With the West, we've got Denver.
Blunder, Tebow. The Tebow era. Well, you know what? I take that back. The Josh McDaniel era. That led to Tebow.
Yeah.
Tebow was a side effect of success. You know, you've got 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that won a Super Bowl there and retired.
To me, their biggest accomplishment
maybe the back-to-backs.
To me, their biggest accomplishment was the acquisition of John Elway as a player and GM, because to me, John Elway is the reason they have their Super Bowl rings. Not Peyton Manning, not that defense, because Elway came in and he helped assemble this core group of guys to know what a championship team was for them, and has done an amazing job. Next up, we're going to go to the Los Angeles, Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, their biggest blunder is easy.
Jamarcus
Russell. And before the rookie wage scale, too, he cost a lot of money to be absolutely useless.
We got to take a timeout for a second. I just thought of the biggest blunder for the Rams. It wasn't Jeff Fisher. Sam Bradford. Anyway, back to the Raiders.
Biggest success?
Could it be yet to come in the move to Vegas?
It could be. They could be completely rebranded, because right now, you know, out in Oakland's a city that's having financial troubles.
Sports betting is becoming a new thing now, thanks to this deal. Well,
what happens when there's a casino in the state?
We're gonna go from the high to the low in this division with the Chargers. The team LA doesn't want.
I think, honestly, that is their biggest blunder. The Spanos family could have pulled, you know, what a lot of these other owners have pulled. I talked about Shad Khan earlier in the show. Invest in the city you're in. I understand San Diego is a Navy town. You have all these people that come into town that bring their own allegiances with them. But there's also plenty of homegrown people there. So I think moving out is their biggest blunder, because I think they just alienated a whole city to move to a city where they're maybe the 3rd most popular NFL team and probably the 5th or 6th most popular team in general, because especially since, you know, with the Lakers now, the Clippers might be more popular than they are. So I think that's the biggest blunder. Biggest success? I've got to say it was those couple successful seasons they had, where they had Rivers and Tomlinson and a solid defense. But they seemed to have all the right pieces and just couldn't get over the hump.
Next up, the Titans. The Tennessee Titans Houston Oilers team. Biggest accomplishment, Music City Miracle. Biggest blunder, the longest yard. The yard where they lost the Super Bowl by 1 yard. That's got to be their biggest. That's got to be for them the easiest.
You know, it's so hard to get to a Super Bowl. And in a perfect world, you have a 50% chance of winning it once you've made it. So, and then to lose it in that fashion is heartbreaking.
Well, we're going to move on since that one was a quick one to do. Let's go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. Probably their biggest accomplishment is what you mentioned earlier. The team being bought by Khan. That's got to be the biggest accomplishment.
It turned the team from a
joke,
kind of a joke, into something else without even having changed what was going on the field. They got stability.
It was that front office stability.
The front office stability changed a lot of things, and I think we're starting to see that on the field now.
Blunder.
Let's see.
Too many to list and move on, or
I don't feel like there's a big major. There's a lot of small moves they made.
They almost committed a big blunder, but they passed on it where the Jets didn't. The same thing the Broncos took up, and that was the Tim Tebow deal.
Tim Tebow effect.
Houston Texans.
Mm-hmm.
I got to steal from you the blunder.
Okay.
Carr. No, we're not talking the car that plays out with the Raiders. We're talking about his big brother that ruined the Panthers and the Giants deal.
Yeah. And
Accomplishment?
I don't think that blunder has to do with selecting Carr. I think it has to be with what they did around him. He was sacked so many. The poor man, never stood a chance.
Accomplishment probably was unseating the Colts as the perennial favorites in that division.
Yeah.
Which opened up the gate to everybody saying, hey, we got a chance this year.
Yeah, it changed everything. The Colts won it every year.
Let's see, who's left? We covered Jaguar. Okay, the only one left is the Colts.
Colts' biggest success is first selection, Peyton Manning. You know, I think it was about a given at the time. I don't really remember it, but it's pretty much the biggest. You're an idiot if you don't select this guy. But for a few sportscasters, there was a solid case for Leaf, and that might be the Chargers' biggest blunder. Going back, Ryan Leaf.
Now, for the Colts, for me, they had a couple blunders. Peyton Manning is not in the conversation. The biggest blunder for me is a tie between giving Jim Caldwell the reins as head coach and arguably what people in Baltimore will say is the biggest blunder was the way they moved the team.
But see, looking at it from the team's perspective, they were getting ready to lose the team. The state was going to try to seize the team with eminent domain, which was a gross violation of that statute. But still, they were getting ready to take it from him. So, you know what? If I was the owner and they were telling me they were going to take my team, I'd have the Mayflower trucks there. And that's exactly what they did.
Now we've only got 2 divisions and roughly it looks like about 14 minutes. So we covered a full division, 2 divisions really in about 8 minutes or less. So maybe about a minute at the most for each team. I'm going to skip over let's go to the North because this won't take long. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 6 Super Bowls maybe accomplishment? Or the fact that they've only had 3 head coaches in the last 30 years.
I think that's an accomplishment all in of itself.
Actually, I think it's 40.
3 head coaches and 6 Super Bowls. You have the stability and the success. 2 things that you want. It's a great package. Blunder. Oh. I think their blunder is coming soon. There has been limited to no preparation for what is going to happen in the post-Big Ben era.
Actually, they did draft a quarterback this year with apprehension from Roethlisberger on it, but got to prepare for the future. I think for me, the biggest blunder for them is Ben Roethlisberger. Not drafting him, but, there for a while, they were in a stretch where he was getting hurt off the field for a lot of stuff. And I think that's it. He's one of those, it's kind of like I'm going to do a Star Wars analogy with the Sith. People who are in power are afraid to lose the power. Him, just like Joe Flacco, are afraid because there's an understudy coming up who could be better than them, and as the heir apparent, they're scared of it. Maybe that's the blunder, is he's not handling the transition like some of the previous guys have.
I think these quarterbacks, I think athletes in general, and this is covered, I know you've never watched it, but I watched the first season of Ballers with The Rock, where he plays a financial advisor. But he talks about how he thought his career was going to end on a stage, shaking hands with the owner and the GM, and how his career ended with a phone call telling him he got cut. I think the athletes dream about leaving on a high note, and only a very few ever get.
Okay, next up. This is a team whose accomplishments are outweighed by their blunders. And that's the guys who play right over there in Ohio in the city LeBron left again. And that's going to be the Cleveland Browns. Biggest accomplishment for them. Maybe that 4 straight championships they had in the pre-Super Bowl era?
Yeah.
Or the revival of the Cleveland Browns.
Well, you could say that. A team that was a city that was getting ready to lose its team. An owner that didn't care, and the city cared enough and lobbied enough that they got their team back. You can argue that they're not happy with it, but they got their team back. There's a lot of cities out there that don't have a team, and I don't think anything like that will happen again because I think they will too much power now. But that is just to show how much power the fans actually have.
For me, biggest blunder for the Browns is just like with some of the other teams we mentioned. Quarterback, Johnny Manziel. That problem, you brought in the problem without having a solution for the problem.
Bringing in a guy that's got that much media attention around him is asking for trouble. I'm usually one of these type of guys that says ignore the noise. If a guy's good, bring him in, ignore the noise. But I think in this case, the talent didn't outweigh the noise that came with it. It was Manziel mania for a year straight. So I think I agree with you on that. At least more modern, a big blunder.
Okay, we're going to go down the road in Ohio to Cincinnati with the Bengals.
I'm going to surprise you here. Their biggest success is Marvin Lewis because the team was terrible. They've had their Super Bowl appearances, but the team was basically terrible at times. And then, he comes along and brings some stability and some success, even though it was limited to the regular season. If you want to say blunders, I would just say with the owner. The owners have just been just let the checks come in and we don't care how the team forms.
I think Carson Palmer was the dark era there.
Yeah, that was a dark time for them.
Because, they didn't make the playoffs that I know of at all with him. And then they bring Andy Dalton in and him and what's his name? The wide receiver. AJ Green. Were a good tandem. Now, our next team, the Baltimore Ravens. 2-time Super Bowl champion team. Biggest accomplishment, biggest blunder. I've got nothing here.
Accomplishment. Well, you gotta go with a Super Bowl victory, but which one? Probably the first one.
Yeah, the first one.
With that defense that just killed it. And then blunders. I'm going to kind of reference back to the Pittsburgh one. There seemed to have been a limited plan on the post-Flacco era. Or if you really want to get into it, it's the fact that they handed Flacco a biggest contract as they did. The man bet on himself. He won. He was on fire and won the Super Bowl, but then got one of the most massive contracts ever and really kind of shortened the team on other things. And they haven't really been that successful since.
Okay, now we're down to the Final Four, the AFC East, and we may agree on this first team's biggest accomplishment. The Buffalo Bills.
Biggest accomplishment. Going to 4 Super Bowls straight, even if you lose them, is an achievement in and of itself. I have to say.
And speaking of, one of the guys who helped them, was responsible for helping them get to those Super Bowls, was not just Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, but the guy who was backup to Jim Kelly. Also, we mentioned him earlier as the first quarterback ever for the Panthers, current head coach of the Colts, Frank Reich. Biggest blunder. A lot of people's going to say Rex Ryan's hiring, but I don't think so. I say
that's a tough one to argue against, though, because he set them back a few years. I think they're just now recovering from his tenure. But if you really wanted to go back, you could say wide right. But yeah, I think Rex Ryan was more of a long-term blunder. A mistake on the field happens, but when you keep letting a guy ruin your team, another success I would like to shout out to them is their success of getting the Blues as owners. Some of the interested parties we're talking about move across the board into Toronto or elsewhere and getting the Blues, who I think own another Buffalo team.
I think they own the Sabres.
I'm pretty sure they own the Sabres. So that really ties them down to Buffalo.
Now this next one's we're probably gonna go very quickly on this next one, but the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the biggest accomplishment for them wasn't just winning the Super Bowl, but that 72 undefeated season. Only team to go undefeated to the Super Bowl.
And they had to play the conference, I think it was the conference championship game. They played it on the road, and they were an undefeated team because they rotated the championship games.
The biggest blunder in their tenure was the Cam Cameron season where they went 1-15, and they hired him out of, honestly, I can't remember. I want to say he was from San Diego. He lasted 1 year with them and was fired at the end of the season because of a bad year. and they've kind of rebounded since.
Yeah, they've had some bad luck over the past few years. I think if Tannehill had been healthy, they could have done more. All right, the next.
I'm going to skip over one and go to the New York Jets.
The Jets. 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 The Jets have been asked sometimes.
To me, the biggest blunder they had was Geno Smith. Drafting Geno Smith and the distraction in the locker room.
That was a guy that had all the talent you could want.
Quicker traction. That's not their biggest blunder. Butt fumble.
Puff.
That was the biggest blunder.
What is Sanchez even up to these days?
Last I heard, he was.
Is he even still in the league?
I thought he was with
retired?
the Vikings. Let's kind of bounce over those guys and head straight to the last team.
Oh, success for the Jets. Super Bowl, obviously.
Let's go to New England and talk about the Patriots.
Oh, that's going to be quick. At least for the success. Belichick, Brady. You want to just lump them in together? That would be the biggest success.
Biggest accomplishment for them was the hire of Bill Belichick. Got to be their biggest one. Quick note, Sanchez is a free agent. He spent last year with the Bears.
The Bears. I bet he didn't even see the field.
Biggest blunder? I'm going to say they share it with the Denver Broncos. Josh McDaniels is their biggest blunder. Guy was on the roster for Spygate, Deflategate, no controversies the whole time he was in Denver for the Patriots. That's for me. I'm anti Greg Williams, anti Josh McDaniels. I don't like either one of those guys.
I'm gonna go. For now. I'm gonna agree with you that because I can't think of anything else. Quick note: I would change their biggest, I guess, lucky break would be the purchase of the team by Robert Kraft.
Yes,
and
that's
how
like
he
Colin.
came to own the team. That's a very interesting story. I think we've covered it before.
Yeah.
But if you've not heard of it before, look it up. Very interesting story.
Maybe
They were going to move to St. Louis and be the Stallions.
Maybe we're going to have to come up with a top 5 best owner transitions in the NFL. I think maybe a very, very good argument for another day.
Well, if we do that, we have to talk about the times that whole franchises have been traded. That would be fun.
Next episode, real quick, before the music starts, I think next week we're going to throw it back.
Throw it back?
We may do a throwback to some of our favorite throwbacks in sports due to NASCAR's Darlington throwback race getting ready to come up. I think we'll talk about our favorite throwbacks from sports like uniforms and from racing, from the paint schemes. I think that'll be a good one for us to do. Just mine might be a little different than yours when it comes to the throwbacks because I've got a decade on you.
Yeah, you do. But I think I could pull up a few. Some old baseball uniforms are nice. They don't. I mean, they have nice ones now, but some of the old ones are cool. You got 2020 for the Olympics, Tokyo, 2024 Paris, and 2028 is when it comes back to the U.S. and Los Angeles.
Go ahead and send us out.
Oh, thank you for listening to this episode of the Not So Neutral Zone.
We'll catch you next week.
Yep, be sure to listen, subscribe, like,